telling. It's 6 o'clock, and I will call this September 12th, 2022 meeting of the Chelmsford the Chelmsford Select Board to order. Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up we have our public service announcements. And do we have anyone here from the Woburn Middlesex Lions Club or a representative for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month?
Yes.
Oh, if you could turn your video on.
Working on it. Got it.
Great. Would you like to just introduce yourself before we read the proclamation?
I'm Dr. Amy Firestein. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I work with an organization called Kids Cancer Connection.
Thank you, Dr. Firestein.
All right, so it looks like we have a proclamation for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection report cancer as the leading cause of death by disease among U.S. children between infancy and age 15, this tragic disease is detected in more than 16,000 of our children's young people every year. An estimated 400,000 children and adolescents are diagnosed with cancer globally each year. And whereas 1 in 5 of our nation's children loses his or her battle with cancer, many infants, children, and teens will suffer from long-term effects of comprehensive treatment, including secondary cancers. And whereas founded nearly 30 years ago by Steve Firestein, a member of the philanthropic Max Factor Cosmetics family, the American Cancer Fund for Children, Inc., Kids Cancer Connection, Inc., and Lions Clubs International are dedicated to helping these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection provide a variety of vital patient physiosocial services to children undergoing cancer treatment at Boston Children's Hospital, Tufts Children's Hospital, Shriners Children's Boston, Dana-Farber Children's Cancer Center, Mass General Hospital for Children, as well as participating hospitals throughout the country, thereby enhancing the quality of life of these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection also sponsor toy distributions, Laughternoon, Laughter is Healing, positive appearance programs, pet-assisted therapy, KCC Supercar Experience, educational programs, and hospital celebrations in honor of a child's determination and bravery to fight the battle against childhood cancer. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Chelmsford, hereby proclaim September 2022 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month and urge our citizens to remember the young lives taken too soon, stand for the families facing childhood cancer today, and rededicate ourselves to combating the terrible illness. And this was signed the 12th day of September 2022 by the Select Board and the Town Clerk, Pat Sturgis.
Thank you, Ken. And Dr. Firestein, is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I'd like to thank the Town of Chelmsford and the Select Board for supporting Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Children with cancer need a lot of support via their families, medically, and from the community. Raising awareness about childhood cancer is a large part of this, and that's what we're doing here today. These children are brave, strong, and determined, as are their families and loved ones. They have to be to face this battle. Through our work at Kids Cancer Connection and the American Cancer Fund for Children, and in association with the support of governments, such as yourselves, we are able to further assist these amazing children and their families. So I just, again, thank you for honoring these children and offering your support against the battle against childhood cancer. We can only hope that one day we will no longer need to issue this type of proclamation. So again, thank you.
Thank you, and we'll have the original sent to you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next up we have the CHS Alumni Hall of Fame. George?
Thank you. The Chelmsford High School Alumni Association proudly announces its 31st annual Hall of Fame induction. The ceremony will take place on the evening of the 15th of October, 2022, at the UMass Lowell Conference Center in Lowell. The program will include a social at 5:45, dinner at 6:30, and the induction at 7 p.m. Those being inducted are as follows: Rachel Fairbanks Adaran, class of 2010. Kenneth Chutchin, class of 1975. Mark Dearborn, posthumously, 1986. Thomas Gill, class of 1971. Daniel Hart, class of 1999. Michael McClarney, class of 1973. Timothy McMaster, class of 1994. Dina Patsarakis Ronayne, class of 2001. And John Souza Jr., class of 1984. Tickets are available at $60 per person. Be either myself or Terry, and my number is 978-256-3100. We have plenty of tickets. Any questions?
Any questions?
None? Thank you.
Congratulations to all of the inductees.
Thank you. Thank you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Yep.
Okay.
Next up, we have a notice from the town of Chelmsford. The Department of Public Works Highway Division is seeking contractors for the snow plowing and snow removal for the 2022-23 winter season. Interested contractors can obtain plow packages at the DPW Highway Division here in Chelmsford at 9 Alpha Road, or they can email a request to mthomas@chelmsfordma.gov. Plow packages will also be available on the town website, townofchelmsford.us. It's on the main page under news and announcements. The rates for plowing are going to range between $90 and $145 an hour, depending upon the equipment that you're applying for. All completed application packages must be returned by Monday, October 24th, 2022. And a $350 sign-up incentive will be provided to contractors who submit their completed paperwork by that date, and an additional $350 will be provided to end-of-season contractors who participate in all but one snowstorm.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have the International Day of Peace.
So please join our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee in celebrating International Day of Peace on Saturday, September 17th from 1 to 4 p.m. on the Town Common. Build bridges for peace. Enter a raffle for a chance to win one of a beautiful garden bridges on display on the Common and to support the children of Ukraine. All proceeds will go to the UNICEF project, UNICEF Protect the Children of Ukraine Fund.
Farm Fair.
Next up, Chelmsford Historical Society presents their annual farm fair. And this is on Saturday, September 17th, also from 12 to 4. The admission is free. They have farm animals, hay rides towards the homestead, live music, foods and drink are there for sale. And there's a lot to see and a lot to learn. It's at the Barrett Byam Homestead at 40 Byam Road here in Chelmsford. The rain date will be September 18th. I usually go every year. If you don't go, it's actually a lot of fun and very educational and interesting, so please take time to go.
Okay. And do you have this police department?
I do.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So the Chelmsford Police Department is offering safety net bracelets to help locate missing people with cognitive impairments. So if you have a resident who wishes to take part in the program, you can contact Officer Matthew Fernald at mfernald, F-E-R-N-A-L-D, at chelmsfordma.gov, or you can call 978-256-2521, extension 301, or you can contact Officer Sean Brady. He's at sbrady, B-R-A-D-Y, at chelmsfordma.gov, or his number is the same, 978-256-2521, but he's extension 275. And these are bracelets in the program available to residents free of charge.
Fall Festival.
Yep. So the Chelmsford Health Department's Fall Fest on October 1st this year. Support the Chelmsford Food Pantry. So if you donate 3 items, I think I did skip.
You skipped
Yep,
one.
hold on, right back up. It's the same one, but the Fall Fest is from October 1st from 12 to 4. It's on the Town Common here. The rain date will just be right across the street at the Center for Arts, so just walk across the street to the Center for Arts. Enjoy a fun autumn day, and they'll have plenty of activities from different vendors that you can participate in. They'll have a petting zoo, a touch-a-truck, and Princess and Superheroes meet and greet will be available. They'll have the Market on the Common and Chelmsford Center for the Arts open house. There'll be music, food, drinks, ice cream. And that brings us to the second one I started to read. They're going to have a raffle. If you bring 3 food items, you'll be for the food pantry. you'll be entered into a raffle, and there'll be a drawing for that. The items they need at the food pantry for food: children's snacks, juice box, cooking oil or spray, small flour, vinegar, mayo, taco kits, ketchup, mustard, jelly, salad dressing, tomato spaghetti sauce, instant coffee, coffee creamer, powdered only, sugar, small boxes, shelf-stable milk, crackers, baby food. Pouches are more popular: box cereal, mac and cheese, pasta varieties. Personal products: shampoo, conditioner, soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, body wash, toilet tissue, body lotion, shaving cream, and diapers, all sizes. Right now, they are a little bit overrun with canned soup and vegetables, so if you focus on those other items, that'd be great. And we just want everybody to come together and support those of us in the community that have needs.
Okay, next we have 2 flu clinics.
Yes, so we have 2 flu clinics coming up.
Flu vaccine clinics.
Vaccine clinic. The first one, Chelmsford Senior Center on October 13th, and that's from 3:30 to 7. From 3:30 to 4:30, they'll be to the seniors age 65 and older. After that, all adults age 19 years or older, and that's, again, at the Senior Center, 75 Groton Road. If you go on to the town's website and click over to the Board of Health, it will bring you right to the pre-registration link at color.com, and you'll be able to go in there and pre-register for the event. The second one will be had at October 18th, and this is 4 to 7 p.m. And again, adults 19 or older, that will be here, 50 Billerica Road, park in the rear of the building. And again, you can pre-register for that right on the Department of Health's website. But you go into the town website and just clicking on Department of Health under Departments, and you'll see it right on the main page there.
Okay, we have one more.
Yes, Family Celtic Night. North Chelmsford Village Association presents Family Celtic Night, the Irish music with sprinkles of Scottish. So this will be Saturday, September 24th from 8 to 10 p.m., the Chelmsford Community Center at the North Town Hall, 31 Princeton Street in North Chelmsford. The admission is $5 for adult. Families with children are $12. They have pizza, goodie, and beverages will be sold.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have public input. Is there anyone who would like to speak during public input? I'm not seeing anyone in the room here. Is there anyone in the Zoom room? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to committee vacancies.
Committee vacancies as of September 12th. The Arts and Technology Education Fund Committee has 1 unexpired 3-year term. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has 1 3-year term. Capital Planning Committee is 1 1-year term. The CCA Advisory Committee is looking to fill 1 1-year term. Commissions on Disability has 1 seat open for a 3-year term. Community Action Program Committee, 4 seats available, 1-year terms. Community Preservation Fund, 1 3-year term. Council on Aging, 2 3-year terms. Cultural Council, 2 unexpired 3-year terms and 1 3-year term. Holiday Decorating Committee, 2 1-year terms. The Parade Committee, all applicants are welcome. Those are 1-year terms, and they expire each July 31st. Permanent Building Committee has 1 3-year term. Public Records Advisory Committee, 1 1-year term. Recycling Committee, looking to fill 1 seat to a 1-year term. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available at the town website. If you are looking for more information, you can reach out to the town manager's office here at 50 Billerica Road. His email address is tmoffice@chelmsfordma.com, or you can call 978-250-5202.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, we have the common vigilar license transfer from Chelmsford House of Pizza to Chelmsford Sub Shop. Do we have anyone here for the business? Yeah, you need to come to the podium where the mic is, please, and give us your name.
Sure, absolutely. So, my name is Lucas Braganca, and we were just applying for a transfer. We bought the business from Chelmsford House of Pizza, and it would just be a transfer over to Chelmsford Sub Shop.
Okay.
And the nature of the business is still the same. We're still a pizzeria and restaurant.
Any questions from the board?
Oh, yeah, I have one question. On the application, it says that the existing use of the premises is 22 seats, but on the license itself, it notes 32 seats.
I don't know if they had more seats in there, but I counted 22 seats when I was in there. Apparently, they had an idea to have stools around the island, the counter, and I guess it was something they never did. So they only had the tables.
Okay, and you're going to be using just the 22?
Yeah, just the tables.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of the common vigilar license from Chelmsford House of Pizza, Inc. to Chelmsford Sub Shop, Inc. to be exercised on the premises at 14 Chelmsford Street here in Chelmsford.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Good luck.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, next up we have reports and presentations.
Yeah, first presentation is from Josh Abbott, the Vice President of the Chelmsford Firefighters Union, and he's here to address the board regarding a town meeting warrant article that would propose the removal of the Deputy Fire Chief from civil service. And I believe we also
Actually have a slide presentation on thumb drive.
Sure, I can put it up. I'll have to take a copy of it for the
Yeah,
record.
I have a copy for everybody.
No, I mean like an electronic.
Thank you.
Big guy.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
I put a PDF on there in case it was a problem with the
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Let's see, to go over. There we go. Okay. You're welcome.
All right, good evening, members of the board. My name is Josh Abbott. I'm here on behalf of the Chelmsford Firefighters Local, proudly representing the men and women of Local 1839. We have a quick presentation about the civil service system, a little bit of the history in Chelmsford, and our stance on the removal of the deputy's position. 1884, Massachusetts became one of the first states in the nation to adopt a civil service system. Civil service is a merit system in which state and municipal employees are selected and advanced on the basis of their capability, knowledge, and skill. It was established to ensure a fair, secure, non-political avenue to the hiring and promotional process in public service. So in 1966, the town of Chelmsford opted the fire department into the civil service system. In 1969, Deputy Fire Chief Charles Jangraw retired from his position. That resulted in a provisional appointment of Fire Captain Edward Quinn to Deputy Chief, and that was pending the results of the first open competitive civil service examination for Deputy Fire Chief. Edward Quinn was later appointed as our first civil service deputy chief in early 1970. Chelmsford since has been well served by the civil service process for promotions, both permanent and on provisional basis since. Provisional appointments are part of Mass General Law, Chapter 31. It's actually Section 12 in there. This part of the law lays out the process for temporary promotions when there is no eligible list and there's the need of a promotion. So that's a benefit to the town. This is all the members of the department that have served us as both permanent and provisional deputy chiefs who've served us since the adoption of civil service.
Okay.
Yep. So this just kind of lays out the process. To apply for the test, it's a $150 fee. It's roughly $650 in books. Then there's study guides you can buy, test prep materials, and then it's hundreds and hundreds of hours of studying to take these exams. Take the test, it's good for 2 years. So you'd have an eligibility list that would be available to the town for 2 years. Okay. So these are the 53 communities in the state that currently have active deputy chief lists. There's 103 cities and towns across the state that fall under civil service, so we're hardly an anomaly.
If I don't understand what you just said. These
These
are the only municipalities with a deputy chief, or they're the
Currently,
municipalities with
so
a
these
civil
are the
service
ones
position?
that currently have an active deputy chief's list.
Okay.
In civil service, you mean?
Right now, just a list, so the community right now could call for the list, schedule interviews, and promote.
Okay. Thank you.
So currently, our test, 80% of the grade is written. So that's that promotional exam. And then 20% is based on your education and experience. So that's time. It's a formula of time you've been with a department, time you've served as a captain, either provisionally or permanently, professional certifications, college degrees, etc. So then there's other configurations that other communities use. Civil service has options for assessment centers. So you could do combinations. So you could do a whole 100% assessment center. There's some communities that do 40% written, 40% assessment center, 20% education, and then there's others listed. So we were slated to have an exam in 2022. We had 3 captains that were willing to take the exam. There was some short notice issues. And it was stated that it would open up to firefighters due to this, and that's just changing from civil service, simply due to the fact that it's open to the next lower rank. It's just wrong and short-sighted. If a firefighter were to want to take the exam, they'd gain valuable knowledge for their career. Also, not having an intermediary rank between firefighter and captain hurts us, because it opens up to the next lower rank for the next test. So right now, it's open to firefighter. If there was a rank between, it would be to that.
What do you mean when you say Chelmsford Fire was not included in the sign-up?
We weren't. I'm not sure what happened. We should have been, and
Chief Ryan's on the call, maybe he has information, so he can provide it after, I don't want to.
yeah, I don't, that's not
You don't
on
know.
our
You
end.
don't know why. And so if Chelmsford Fire was included in the original sign-up and not the special sign-up, then would that have increased the probability that the
It
exam
could've.
would actually happen?
I mean, hindsight's 20/20, so
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify the
Do you mind
only
if Chief
3
says something?
Okay, I just wanted to clarify the only 3 people signed up for the test.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Go ahead, Chief. Did you want to say something?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Manager, Madam Chair, and board members. So my admin assistant, Anna Griffin, puts in for a test. She does it every 2 years. When we get a requisition number for the test, she has to post it. She will put it in all 5 stations. So I know there was an issue with COVID, but with the last test, and I've had this discussion with her, she has gone personally out to each station, and she will post it. So she will do that for the captain's exam, and she will do that like she has for this deputy's exam. So it is posted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Josh.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you have a,
Did you want to say something?
The sign updates are on there, so.
You want me to go to the next slide?
Yep, please. So the other thing that was stated in the initial posting when we found out about this was to gain parity with the police department. So this shows our rank structure. So I just want to illustrate the point. We have 1 chief, 1 deputy, 7 captains, 50 firefighters. If you look at the police, they have a chief, a deputy, 7 lieutenants, 8 sergeants, 38 patrol officers. So that's roughly, the police have roughly 2 subordinates reporting to a supervisor. We're over 5 to 1. And then if you look at while we're on shift, you have from 11 to 13 subordinates reporting to 1 supervisor. That actually can increase as we bring mutual aid in, other outside agencies, EMS responders, et cetera. So that's, again, where that intermediary rank would come in, that experience to take further tests, to have that person available to take a deputy's exam.
Next one.
So the benefits of civil service are vast. It removes bias and favoritism when appointing positions. There are absolutely no costs to the town for any part of civil service. From the initial hiring, testing, and appointments, promotional exams, and an appeals process. The appeals process is handled by a neutral third-party magistrate and is done at no cost as part of the civil service system. Again, it's used by 103 cities and towns, including Chelmsford, which is the vast majority of full-time professional fire departments in Massachusetts. These promotional exams are not easy, and they show the dedication and commitment to the positions being sought by our members. They also provide our members with a career path. So in closing, at this time, we have not been informed of any aspects of what the suggested replacement examination process may entail. We are also unaware of what the cost may be to the town, and if these were to be bid contracts, is a low bid the appropriate avenue for selecting a deputy fire chief? In the event of contested results, how would the appeals process be handled? The lack of clarity regarding these issues seems egregious given the considerable benefits presented under civil service. For these reasons, the professional firefighters of Chelmsford respectfully ask the Select Board to support our stance in opposing Article 20. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Josh?
so, I have one. So Josh, you said 103 towns and cities use civil service out of the 351?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd made a comment that you're in the majority, but,
Well, you got to look at, for fire service,
Mm-hmm.
that's full-time. When you go west of here, you get a lot of part-time and call departments. So they're not handled under civil service.
Is the reading list announcement at the end of the handout, is that just an example?
That is this year's reading list for deputy
Okay.
chief. I just wanted you to see the extensive, what is involved with studying to become a deputy chief. It's pretty,
I'm also still a little bit confused over, when you said the posting, and so just so I'm caught up to speed, the posting was done for the fire chiefs, or for the civil service exam this year, and only 3 people signed up? Am I understanding that right?
For the special exam?
so the posting closed
When?
in March,
Okay.
and we were not included in that. So there was a special sign-up open for 1 week for us, for Chelmsford, and 3 people signed up.
Okay. And Chief, why weren't we on the open for the exam in March?
We were. So again, we put in for a test. We get a requisition number. We have to post it. Anna Griffin will go to all the stations. She will post it. And then, so it's pretty much every 2 years. Unless we don't get, in this case, we only got 3 and it's canceled. And then it's opened up next year to the next lowest rank, which Josh is correct, it's firefighters.
So
So
we had,
next year,
so we had 3 for the special test?
no, it's 3, 4, we have 3 for the written exam, but there's a criteria we need to meet. We have 7 captains. So we need 4 to have a open competitive exam. If we don't meet that criteria, they will cancel the test.
I
So it
believe,
gets pushed
I
back
believe
to
his
next
question
year.
was, we had 3 for the special scheduled test sign up. Right?
I don't know why you're saying
Question.
special, it's a regular test. We run a regular cycle every 2 years. And again, so that test was not held because we didn't meet the 4 threshold. So now it is pushed off to the year 2023,
All right, so we.
and
so
it's
we
an
did
open
have-
test.
So we did have the March test.
That's-
We tried to have the
No.
March test, but we
Window.
didn't have.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We applied for the March
Right.
test.
We applied and didn't have enough people to sign up, correct?
That's not what this, that doesn't jive with what's here, so that's why we're confused.
My understanding of it is we were not included in the initial sign-up. When these are posted on the website, Chelmsford was not included. And it was after the sign-up period closed that we then were included in this. So we had 7 members that had 1 week to decide whether they were going to take the test or not. I'm not interested in going into a back and forth here and
I mean, that's easy, you can just look at the dates of the sign up.
Exactly. I put them there. I can find the signups online. We can call civil service. That's fine.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you,
Josh.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next presentation this evening is from Lexi Lattimore, the Executive Director of the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, and she's here to present the strategic growth plan for the Center for the Arts. Good evening, Lexi.
Did you, there was another attachment on this one. That
There
was just-
is, and
No, I meant on the previous
No,
topic.
I mean, the board had asked at the previous meeting about, could you provide the information, 2 things. You would ask for the statute that provides, it's all related to civil service, about why the
Okay.
police chief has an employment agreement, and that was enacted back in 1993, when the town meeting voted to exempt the police chief position from civil service. And that act was included there. And then in 2004, town meeting voted to exempt the position of deputy police chief from civil service. And then that, again, was enacted by the legislature shortly thereafter. So the board had asked for that background information, and so I didn't want to step on the toes of the union's presentation, so I just provided it in the packet.
Okay,
for the
thank you.
information board
Go ahead,
requested.
Lexi, I'm sorry.
that's okay. And I sent a slideshow as well. I don't know if, nope.
Oh, I have it.
She has your handout that you provided.
Okay,
All that was in the packet was this document.
okay. Sounds good.
And this slide.
Okay, okay.
Is that
That's
okay?
fine. It'll do. It'll do. You just don't get the pretty pictures. I'm
Sorry
sorry.
about that.
I'm totally sorry. No, that's on my end. So good evening. My name is Lexi. Obviously, you guys swore me into the executive director position of the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. We have been so incredibly busy this past summer, quietly behind closed doors, getting prepared for a busy fall season. We have updated our mission, vision, and value statements, and they're reflected here. Really, our mission is to enhance the quality of life of residents in the Merrimack Valley and beyond. And we've taken our mission and vision statement directly from what's reflected in the town's mission and vision. In the prettier format of this, I have a breakdown. I did some research on what quality of life really means. What is that actually? What are the elements and the components of that? And I did some research and found that there's a Quality of Life Foundation in the UK, and in 2019, in 2021, more recently, they started to break down through peer review what are the 6 elements, if we had to group into buckets, that really let us know what quality of life boils down to. The first one was control. A sense of permanence, a sense of safety, and the ability to really make decisions on your environment. So this right here is a perfect example of Chelmsford resident ability to have a sense of control, to say, this is what I want to see happen in my community. The second is health, so thinking about air quality. The third is nature, so people's ability and access to green space. The fourth is wonder, a sense of playfulness, and a sense of creativity. We have belonging. And the way that we really fit into those elements include wonder and belonging. As the Center for the Arts, we have an opportunity, unlike many other spaces, to provide people, young and older, a space enriching to all. So again, it's reflected in our mission and our vision, and we've created this value statement asking ourselves, does this work? WERCC. Does it enhance well-being? Does it encourage empathy, build resilience? Does it support creativity and create connection? And that is how we're evaluating every single program, event, offering that we have. We can scroll down a bit here. In 2019, so I feel very grateful, although I'm stepping in as COVID restrictions are loosening. There was a strategic plan that was done in 2019 that was commissioned, and all of that information that was captured has been my roadmap as I've started to plan what we're going to do in this next year of experimenting and figuring out what might work, what might not. As you know, the CCA was founded in 2009. Our audience median age has been 60 prior to 2019. And programming has been covered, but not our operating expenses. And these were just the overarching themes that came out of that report. You have seen it. We bring it up here so that I can go through some of the priorities quickly and show you the way that we're going line by line, looking at each priority and matching it to programming that we can offer today. We know that our audiences value the CCA, they value our building, so our job is really just to get people in the door. And that brings us, if you scroll a bit down to priority number 1, which is building our audience, building attendance. And as you can see here, we have a number of fall festivals and engagements that allow people to come into the space without asking them really for anything but to have a good time. We've partnered with the health department, and they have been so gracious with us. So on their Fall Fest event on the Common, we will be having our open house and directing people to and from our building so that they can see all the new things that we have going on, sign up for arts education, which we'll be offering starting in October. And in case it rains, we will be able to serve as the rain partner. So this has been a really strategic move, I think, on our end, and a really gracious offering from the health department to really combine forces and to partner with marketing and all of that to get as many people through the door as possible. We estimate having at least 600 people come through. We'll definitely be counting and seeing how off or on we are. But the same thing is true for our Halloween festival that will be coming up in October. We're offering cabaret programming for adults every Thursday night starting in October, and for youth every Friday night. We are so excited to be able to provide space for our teenagers in town who often lack third spaces that are safe and indoors, and that they can be able to connect together in a way that is social and artful and fun. And finally, hoping to collaborate and have our building open during the prelude. So there's some coordinating there to come. But in terms of those priorities, if we continue on, we've heard a little bit fabulous about really creating more of a meaningful engagement model. So we have a gorgeous gallery, and historically we have had artists come in, present work, and people can come and engage, perhaps buy the art and move on, rightfully so. But we're really looking for a more engaged process by which we are working directly with artists and community members to produce one-of-a-kind art. So I've started to have conversations with folks. A good example is adults who have autism and their families. Thinking about working with them to tell story about their experiences, working with an artist who might be able to bring those experiences to life, maybe through portraits, maybe through something more theatrical, and then having that be the gallery exhibit for the time. I think it creates, again, a different level of meaning making as it's folks in our own community who are represented from different groups, and also provides a process for community to not only receive art, but to participate in the making of it. We're offering healing arts highlights. I'm working right now to figure out if we can put forth a cancer support group with knitting. So our knitting instructor is very excited about that, offering a space for folks to be able to gather together, talk through some of their struggles while making art together. And offering leadership opportunities. We had 4 student interns work with us for the month of August. They were phenomenal. They did the really hard labor of cleaning out closets and moving tables and getting things prepared for our fall programming, so we are so grateful to them. We had 30 youth come and help clean up around the building, inside and outside. They were painting, and they had a blast, and they've really been letting us know what they want to see happen in the space, and we are responding. The good news is so much of it really, really reflects what's already been surveyed in 2019. So I feel that so far we're really on the mark. Continuing further down, the second priority is really increasing marketing and increasing offerings that people feel very excited about. So 60% of those surveyed in 2019 said that they do not believe that the CCA offers something to them that they want to attend. It's not that they don't like the building or that they don't want to participate, it's just that there wasn't something offered that piqued their interest. One of the biggest things that folks mentioned was theater. They talked about theater and they talked about family and children's programming. So we have a number of children's shows that will be coming up in the winter. We have the fall festivals the festivals that are focused on family. And finally, we are starting a community theater program. So they are in the process, I would say in about 10 minutes, they will be meeting for the first time and we'll be hosting auditions. Our first show is a murder mystery. So it's going to get a little spooky at the CCA. Hope you all can make it. It will be on October 22nd. Lauren Cochran, who has served as the Theater Guild director for a really long time, has now retired but is offering her services and her expertise with us, so we're very excited to have her. And I've gotten an email every single day, multiple emails saying how excited people are for this. So we are pumped to do that and also have a Charlie Brown Christmas in December. So that will be fantastic. There's a list of some of our big name performers for the year. I won't talk about everything we've got going in the spring because it's like a million dates that I could give you and it's too much. But I will say that we're working on a show that features alumni talent. There are folks in our community who grew up here who I could not afford to bring back. That is how well they have done. So many of them, I think we've got about 6 or 7 so far, have volunteered to share their talent with us around Thanksgiving Day weekend. So we're excited to offer a homecoming in that sense and really to fundraise by way of people connecting with folks that they grew up championing and are now, say, on Broadway or doing some other fantastic thing in the field. The final thing that I'll share, and then I'll stop talking and allow for questions. Our third priority, we can scroll down even from there. Our third priority is.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'm doing the highlights for you all.
3 for third.
3 for yes, that is exactly right. We're working on increasing our contribution. So our membership program will launch October 1st at our open house. In 2019, the CCA only had 50 members, which given the population of our community is quite small. So we're looking to expand that and offer really meaningful perks to folks. We are working, I met with Lisa Maroney, who was fantastic about talking through how we can partner with local businesses, how we can partner with other corporations in and around town to help support in ways that feel really deeply beneficial to them. And finally, I've been working on foundation support. I've met with a number of folks, some folks from the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, the Mass Cultural Council. We have a grant that we're applying to on September 28th coming up, and another program-specific grant through them in October. And finally, working on our major donors, our partners organization has not been up and running for a number of years, and so we're looking to start. There's been some community support to say, let's start a Friends of the CCA, much like the Friends of the Library or the Friends of the Senior Center, to help us do some of the fundraising that would support all that's coming up. So I just want to really, really thank each and every one of you. I want to thank Paul for the support, and all of you for having me on and taking a chance, and I think we're going to have a fantastic time. I hope to see you at some of the events. Can I answer any questions? There are many more details in this document, but any questions?
I think it's a great start.
Thank you.
Very
Very
exciting.
exciting, thank you.
Awesome. The final, in just the next document that you have, I've included for you a logic model. This just talks about how we are going to measure our success. We need to make sure that before we even begin, we know what we're aiming to do. We need to see that the mission is really lining up. So just for your reference, and you can go back and look at another time, we have our what we're investing, what activities we're doing, and the measurements in terms of participation, and what our outcomes hope to be in the short, medium, and long term. So that's another reference point. When we come back to evaluation, the next time I see you, I hope that I can have some numbers plugged in to say, hey, this is how we're doing. This is how well we're on the mark. This is the room that we have to grow. So again, I appreciate your support.
And those your measurements are, right now, are all in terms of number of events or number of tickets. So that will be translated also so that we can see kind of how are we doing in terms of dollars.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it will be both. There's the numbers part, and then by the time we've gotten through the numbers piece, we'll be able to start to provide more qualitative questions that get at the heart of, are we really achieving our mission in the short term, medium, and long term? So that's going to be coming down the line once we have those base numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the board's goal is to have her come in quarterly. So what I think would happen is her next appearance would probably be in 3 months, right after the first of the year, assess how the fall went, look at the numbers, and at that time, as you know, we're preparing the budget for the town for the upcoming year, and then we sort of see how it comes together and where we go from there. Great, thank you, Lexi.
Yeah, thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you,
Great
Lexi.
job. Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next presentation is from Christine Clancy, our Public Works Director, and she's here on 3 items. The first one is an update on the roadway pavement plan, and then be followed by revisions to the stormwater fee schedule, and then the ARPA projects update. So thank you, Christine, for coming out this evening.
Thank you. Good evening. And also with me tonight, I have our town engineer, Tony Rapucci. He will also be presenting on just the pavement management update. So before you, the first item is the paving plan update. And I know that in February of 2022, there was a 5-year plan presented to the select board. Since then, Tony and I have come on board and we've looked at this plan. And we do propose some, I would call them tweaks to the plan, some updates that warranted. And so we really focused just looking at the next 2 years. As far as 2022, and even looking at the next couple of years, I would call these tweaks. The plan has pretty much stayed the same, but there are some streets that we want to adjust, and we have some general reasons as to why. One is that we are currently underway with a sidewalk master plan update. I know that when we did the roadway update, paving update, the sidewalk information was included, but it was dated. It was from, I think, 2008. So we are right now procuring a contract to do a town-wide sidewalk assessment, and that will look at both the existing sidewalks and also proposed opportunities, especially around schools, around businesses. So we'll have that for the spring, or really, actually, we'll do the work this fall with a consultant, have the report done this winter, and then by spring we should have that report back to present back to the select board. And that really should be incorporated into some of the streets in the paving plan. So there are some streets in the paving plan that were slated this year or early next year for paving, but also new sidewalk. And really, if we're going to do new sidewalk, the best time to do it is along with the roadway work. So an example is Parkhurst Street was slated for this year. We want to wait for the paving plan, so we just put that out a couple years, and we'll revisit that in the spring. So that's an example of some of the tweaks that we made, streets that had proposed sidewalks that we just want to look at to see where does that fall into the priority in the overall 5-year plan. A couple other examples are when Tony and I had looked at some streets, we realized that some streets potentially we want to pave sooner. And an example, we want to catch them before they become in a worsened condition that we can no longer mill and overlay. And a good example of that is Drum Hill Road. That really takes a beating in the winter with all the salt, with town trucks, state trucks coming off the highway with all the salt. It really has deteriorated quite considerably in the past couple of years, but especially over winter, deteriorates a lot. So looking at it, right now it's still millable, so we could mill it. Still something we would probably do at night. I'm concerned that if we don't do it this winter, would we be able to mill it next year? And there's an increase in cost to reclaim. There's also, disruption to the community. So we moved Drum Hill up to this fall. So we're planning for that, and it would be night work. And we'll be able to mill that and do that sooner rather than later. And there's some other, so I guess really the priority too is that when we looked at our backlog, we have a considerable amount of reclamation, or streets that need reclamation. So we've focused a lot on mill and overlay. That's when we come in and take the top 2 inches off the roadway. A lot of streets, about $25 million in backlog, need reclamation, which is when we go in and we mill up that 8 inches, creating a new base, and then you come in with a new base binder course and top course. So we wanted to also look to see how we could focus some contracts to focus on reclaim. And that's really, I think, the crux of some of the changes is developing these reclaim contracts. And that will also overall improve our pavement management index to the rating system of our roadways. And then we also are just looking at some other technologies. Micro sealing is something that I don't think we've done in the community.
What was that?
Micro sealing.
Oh, thank you.
So it's really almost like it's not exactly like sealing your driveway, but I guess it's the closest comparison. It does extend the life of roadways. So it's before when the road just starts to show some deterioration, some cracking, you want to catch it. So it's the roads that still, when you drive down it, they still look nice, feel nice driving over it, but we want to try to catch some of those roads. It also can only be used on certain roads that don't have high volume of traffic. So we want to do a pilot. This, I think it actually might be in the spring that we're doing it. But again, those are some streets that we have also adjusted in the schedule to do a pilot and see if it's something that we want to continue. We do crack sealing annually, but now do we want to also look at some micro sealing annually? And we do have attached to the memo, we have a detailed, and this is where Tony can step in and provide some updates. We did about 9.7 miles of roadway this year, which is a considerable amount. And if we look down, so there's the way this spreadsheet is broken up as roads under construction, roads that we will be completing, still to be completed for both 2022 and 2023. And then on the third page, it says reclaim roads estimate with an additional $1 million. So this is this additional, if we really want to look at putting together some reclaim contracts, how would we spend that money? And these are the roads that we came up with. Also, there's a column, the state is coming in and doing paving on Route 4 and Route 40, so we just wanted to put that in here as well. And there's also a figure that goes along with this highlighting, so you can see geographically which streets are completed, what streets are under construction, which streets will be under construction. And this really is just focusing on this year and next year. We do still need to look at the overall 5-year plan, and that's something we will do in the spring when we have the revised sidewalk plan. I don't know if there's any questions, or Tony, if you want to provide anything else.
Hi, everyone. So just to clarify some of the numbers on that, the first slide, so it would be the next page.
Where, did you want me to go here?
Yes, and if you went to the very top, that first page on that slide.
Yeah.
So just to clarify some of these the values here. So
Tony, maybe if you could start, if you could just read, I know it's there, but could you just read the list of roads that have already been completed, starting with Cliff?
Yes,
and then
so
go down, yeah, that would be
of
great.
the roads that are completed in 2022, we've done Cliff, Freeman, Hall, Hart, Katrina, Lafayette, Meehan, Monument Hill, Purcell, Rack, and Thornton. And that's been $1 million that we've already spent this calendar year. This is 2022. Roads that are under construction and roads that we are trying to complete in the calendar year of 2022, that's that 1.8 million. And so that is totaling 9.74 miles of roadway we're trying to complete in 2022. And that total would be $2.8 million of roadway work that we've done. In that 1.8 million, that's when you go down and you can see the roads currently under construction. And that's where you have Bull and Charlesgate, Clinton, East Putnam, Fenwick, First. Every road that's in that first section, these are roads that either have already been milled, they've been reclaimed, one layer of pavement's gone back, they've been milled and we've had a leveling course get put on it, but these roads are not yet they're not completed. They should be done within, I believe, 2 weeks' time. And then with that, we have the next segment of roads, which we're still trying to get, that we have under contract that we're looking to complete this year. So that's what that very top summary is. Included in that, we have a spot milling and pave contract. This is roads that don't need a full mill on the entire roadway. It's just sections of the roads that have failed. And we have that contract that's out for $277,000. That contract, it's already been signed. We're looking to have that start, I believe, in early October. And then we have the crack sealing roads that we've done of $116,000. And that is pavement preservation. And that is something that the micro sealing would be looking to do next year, is not just wait to fix roads once they've already been in failure or need rehabilitation, but to get in there and do some pavement preservation. And that's crack sealing and the micro sealing program I would be looking to do. And then for roads for 2023, that's the third list. That's about $1 million or 4.12 miles of roads we're looking to do. And then the state's doing about 3 miles of work on Route 4 and Route 40. So 2023, we're looking already to have lined up close to 7 miles of roadway for next year. And if we were able to secure a few more funds for the reclaim roads, we can start working on that backlog. And with that backlog, our overall pavement index would increase. And would roughly, you can see it's about 2 miles for $1 million worth of reclaim. It's a lot less mileage per cost, but these are roads that need it, and we won't just be able to get away with $1 million and overlaying them. Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions on that, or did I speak a little too quickly on it?
Questions? No, that was great, thank
Nope.
you.
That's really good. We don't mind quick.
Thank you.
You want to go to stormwater?
Yes, please, yeah. We'll move on to the modifications to the
Sure.
stormwater fee.
All right, so the next item is for the Stormwater Division. It was in 2019 that the Stormwater Division was created and established at DPW, and a fee structure was implemented to really be able to support that division. And in looking at the fees, so the fee structure is every residential unit is charged an annual fee of $60. And then we have tiers 1 through 18 for commercial units or commercial properties. And it's measured on, it's called the ERU, equivalent residential unit. In Chelmsford, it's measures 39, just short of 4,000 square feet. We did look across other towns just to see what the average ERU charge is per, the average ERU charge is. And it varied between $24 and $188. And usually, commercial is charged a little more. when we looked at our ERU, the way it had been structured between the tiers 1 through 18 for commercial, we were between 45 and 518 ERU. So really outside of that average for the state. And it really, the way that we currently have the fee structure, so it's as you have a larger parcel, you're charged less, we're charging less per an ERU, and by the end of it, it goes down to $45. So you're actually charging less per an ERU than you are just the residential at $60. It did put more burden, I think, on some of the smaller and middle sized commercial businesses. So we looked at a way to see if we could restructure it, and the proposal, and these would take effect this January, is to make adjustments so that still make a very slight incremental adjustment to residential, so going from $60 to $62 per resident, so it goes up $2. And then we broke it down into two sections. So tiers 1 through 7 would have a flat rate of $130. And then tiers 8 through 18 would have a flat rate of $105. Now what that does is it actually, so of the 512 commercial properties across the town, 427, or about 83% of those commercial properties would see a decrease in their ERU the way that we structured it. It's just because the way that it was structured is the tiers were substantial. We were charging almost 518 per ERU for a small or mid-sized commercial business. So this is now, I guess, leveling it a little more across all the tiers. And as a result, the majority of the commercial properties will see a decrease. There will be an increase for some of the larger ones, but majority see a decrease. And I do, on the second page, have a listing, I think it's the attachment, that shows the residential fee, what it currently is, and then what the proposed January 2023 rate. And, we do have a budget for the Stormwater Division, so the goal was to try to maintain that $1.8 million of bringing in. But you can see SRF is going, the residence is going 60 to 62. Tier 1 is currently 325. It would be going to 163. And you see a decrease up to Tier 7. There is an increase for the larger tiers, but it's a very small amount of businesses compared to the rest of the size of the businesses. I don't know if there's any questions.
I'm just looking for the attachment.
Sure. Oh,
It wasn't with
sorry.
It's okay.
I can explain it again.
I have a couple questions. Any idea how many businesses on the high end or the larger businesses will get impacted by this?
So it's the balance of so 427 out of 512 will see a decrease. So
427 out of
the
512.
reverse would see
Yeah,
the increase.
okay.
Some are
So about 70,
incremental. There's a couple that would be a little more substantial, but these are large businesses, and it really, it is. I think when you look at these, also these properties have a lot more larger impervious area. So it's a large. You kind of, if you have a larger property, you're charging more.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than 70. It's almost 100. It's
Yeah.
on that chart, so. It's anybody tier 8 or higher.
Tier 8 or higher, yes.
Okay, I got it. Well, obviously, like your tier 18 is UPS. Just to give you a sense of magnitude at the very end, there's one, that's UPS, and you can see you go all the way down to tier 14. You're starting to deal with the Chelmsford Mall and those type of, large properties and so forth, and what you have here at, in the center, the old Purity Plaza and so forth, but.
As you said, this seems to be more in line with adjoining
Yes.
communities and so forth for.
Yes, communities are, I think, still developing stormwater fees. Not every community has one yet. It's something, but we have in other neighboring communities. And so the range that we found was between the 24 and 188, and ours was 45 to 518. And in talking with our stormwater engineer, she gets calls all the time from a lot of businesses, especially the smaller ones, like, why is it 518 per ERU? And it's just the way that the structure was worked out, and I think this is levels it a little better so that we can explain. And actually, the way that it works out is you get charged, if you're commercial, I think it's just under 100,000 square feet. So if you have less than 100,000 square feet of impervious area, then, or the ERU, then you're charged the 130. If it's more, then you're charged the 105. So these would take place in January, and it would be, I think it's twice a year that we do billing.
And how will we communicate this out?
We'll put it, we'll do a news flash. We'll also, I think definitely with when we do the billings in the mailing, but ahead of time, we can communicate it through social media. I don't know if we have another mailing coming out before then, but.
Yeah, I think especially the people that are going to see some increases, they'd probably like to know.
Sure.
So those that have impervious area, they'll still get a waiver or whatever they get now for the impervious area that they have in their parking lots or whatever?
Yes, it's not changed. And actually, it still provides incentive, so you can reduce your ERU by reducing your impervious area. So,
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're not changing the way, so if you were to take up pavement and put down grass or put down porous pavement, that would become a pervious area, and we would still deduct that from your ERU. So it's not penalizing. I guess it's a different structure as to how we're billing people, or different it's different scale or range.
Okay, thanks.
Another question I had was, so there's also a way a resident can avoid the stormwater fee too, correct? If they build a catch basin or whatever?
I can get back to you on that. I don't know. I know we built, because we have 10,000, 1,100, almost 11,000 properties, and we bill them all. If there's a way to,
I thought there was, when we originally did this, there was a way that if a
Remember there
resident
being one.
could get back a certain percentage if they did something on their own property.
I don't remember.
Yeah. And I don't know if it would be, because a catch basin can be pretty costly to put on your property, and if it's not warranted.
Someone
so-
asked me about it, that's why I was
I can
wondering.
find out about it if we had done that at some point. I have not heard of that recently. Because I know a couple of times we've recommended to people to put dry wells on their property because they had ponding, and we didn't talk about a reduction in the stormwater fee. We had recent flyover data, so we do look at flyover data. But if people have any adjustments, I guess the thing is for residential, it's a flat rate, and it's going up to $62.
So, and specifically, I had a neighbor ask me, we have a lot of point wells in our neighborhood that have gone dry with the drought. And one of my neighbors said, if I put a dry well in, we live on a hill there, and caught the water coming down, would the town have a problem with that? I don't know. I said, you might even be eligible for a sewer, or stormwater relief, but I said I'd look into it, so.
Yeah, I can look into it. I don't think we have given credit in the past, but I can look into it.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
And then finally, Christine has a ARPA projects update, and particularly focusing on the procurement. Again, the board's goal in terms of where are we in terms of the, getting commitments in terms of the use of the town's ARPA funding.
So this is and I think actually if you go maybe to the second attachment just right away, and I can explain it. It is hard to read on the screen, and it is a handout, I think 11 by 17 handout. So this lists all of the projects that have been approved through, for use of ARPA funds, amounting to about $7.9 million. And what I did is I listed each project, and also we have a column that says overall project status. We track this really on a weekly basis, at least the DPW projects, because we're trying to move forward a lot of these HVAC projects. But I think the column that is really important is the procurement status. And so I went through and put whether it was procured. Some things are procured, but then if you look at the amount spent, they haven't been spent yet because the project hasn't been completed, or we're still in the process of getting a contractor on board. Some things have been partially procured. I also put some estimated timelines, because this is what when we're planning at DPW, we want to try to set some timelines as to when we want to have projects go out the door. So you can see that a lot are partially procured or and then there's estimate this winter for about a lot of the balance, and there's some in the spring, with the overall goal of procuring all these projects before the end of the calendar or fiscal year. I guess one thing and then also some of these are non-DPW items. Some of these are procurement of air purifiers. Some of these are just purchases. Some of that has been done. So I think really the focus is on some of these projects that we have to implement, and that does take time because we have to get a designer on board and then get a bid together, and then after we go to bid, hire a contractor. We also have been estimating some overruns, potential overruns, especially with the HVAC, because the prices are coming in all over the place. We're not there yet. Right now, we're still in the design phase, but we do have some, in another column, it says estimated escalation price adjustment. So we have estimated some potential overruns in this column, and we'll be tracking that as we get closer to the bidding. And then ultimately, when we do open the bids and see if it's warranted to need to seek additional funds. So we're tracking that. And then we're also just going to be tracking the amount spent. I think the critical is to procure it, but just good to know where once we procure projects, are we making sure we're paying the invoices and completing the work. I guess number one is the mechanical support school HVAC systems. We had a budget of $730,000. We've only spent $116,000 to date. This is where we've hired NB Kenny and Boston Mechanical to assist in our schools and up to between 3 to 5 days a week. That is an item that we potentially will see an underrun in, but also a potential opportunity we're looking right now if we need to hire more HVAC contractors just for the winter, or potentially, I know it was discussed, like a ARPA project manager that could potentially be a category to pull from.
In the escalation estimate,
Sure.
is that 654K? That's the same number we had the last time. So that right now that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed. I think it changed just very slightly.
It might tweak a little as you progress further.
Right.
In the procurement process.
A lot of those projects are currently being designed with an estimated late fall bid. I think it's November. We say winter. I think it's like November, December. So we really can't make any adjustments to those until we bid those projects. So the senior center being one. There's also a number air control and balance projects. We're going to procure that between the winter and the spring. So until we procure those, we kind of have to hold those contingencies in place, unless something changed drastically with the market that we are aware of, but the market is still fluctuating uncontrollably. The only change, I think, was number 45. We do not need the health educator contract tracer because that was procured through a different grant, so I think it just takes $12,000 off of the balance. But essentially, it's the same that was presented. Are there any other questions?
The only other thing I note before she departs is, in addition to the weekly review that's done at Public Works, we have monthly meetings with the superintendent of schools and the school facilities director, and we're reviewing the town and the school list to make sure that things are on track and on top of it. And then again, I'll just reiterate the request that Christine had about bringing somebody on board as a project manager or assistant facilities director, because one of the challenges that we're going to have, and we talked about this with succession planning and so forth, is in the immediate future, Christine will be out for a few months with maternity leave, which obviously is going to diminish our capabilities. And then it's our expectation that we may need that our facilities director will be retiring within a year. And so there's that need, and our thinking was that if we could fund a position of assistant facilities director, it would assist us with these efforts as well as the succession planning effort a year from now. And we're probably thinking about $100,000 is probably what's needed towards that effort. So again, I just want to reiterate that request to the board. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
And then our final report and
I'm just
present.
gonna step out really quick.
Yeah.
Just got a text.
But we can keep going.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Go ahead.
George may have to step out too. That's why I'm just, because we got the North Chelmsford Water District. We got Paul McKinley
Oh, yeah.
is our next presenter is regarding the PFAS remediation system and testing on Richardson Road. And I think, Paul, thank you for joining us this evening. And I think probably and we also recognize we have Bruce Harper on the call as well, and maybe out of consideration for Bruce's time, Paul, why don't we start with the testing results and so forth, so that way we can,
Just 1 second, I think I inadvertently closed his file.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul. Welcome this evening.
Well, thanks for having me, and can you hear me okay, everybody?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, so if possible, if you could, there was one figure that might help us, if you have the actual figure of the site. Perfect.
This one, or which one?
That's the one. That's the one.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. So again, my name is Paul McKinley. I'm a licensed site professional from Weston and Sampson, and I'm here tonight to just give you an update of where we are with addressing the presence of these PFAS chemicals, the per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, the forever chemicals that you hear referred to on the news these days. We've come a long way. I actually, looked up when we started this. It was, started in December of 2020, and we've come a long way. So in that time, we got our arms around, the extent of these PFAS chemicals on the site. We've designed a remedial system, had DEP's approval back in November of 2021. And since then, we've installed and began operation of a remedial system. So a lot of this data I'm going to talk about is hot off the presses. I think we got the last groundwater results from our most recent August sampling, Wednesday night at 8 or 9 o'clock. And so we've pulled it together for you pretty quickly, just so we can talk about it tonight and give you an update. So what you're looking at this figure here, this is the latest hydrogeologic data that we've collected on the site during pumping operations from our remedial system. And I should back up. The remedial system consists of a recovery well. That's the yellow dot in the middle of the closed circle, right in the middle of the red there. We're pumping off that that recovery well at anywhere between 130, 160 gallons per minute. And what that generates is a cone of depression that's depicted actually in this figure in the red hatching. So as designed, we wanted to capture the PFAS chemicals in the groundwater. They're then pumped to inside one of the buildings and treated and then discharged into the green infiltration trenches, which are right along Richardson Road, if you're following that in the figure. So the remedial system began operation on July 5th, 2022. Since that time, we've been pumping it for 2.5 months, but we've provided 2 updates to Mass DEP for the reporting periods of July and August. And so in July, we actually pumped about 4.7 million gallons, and in August, we pumped about 5.3 million gallons. So between July and August, about 10 million gallons has been pumped, treated, and re-infiltrated into those green trenches. We take compliance system samples when we do this. There's more frequently a system startup, but currently we're on a monthly schedule for compliance samples. And what those are basically the influent concentrations when it comes out of the recovery well, and then the effluent samples just to verify that our treatment train is effective and been treating the groundwater that's discharged. And thus far, the treatment has been very effective. We're treating down to non-detect for these PFAS chemicals before this water is re-injected into the subsurface. So we do have groundwater. We did a most recent groundwater snapshot after a month of operation of the system. So the groundwater sampling was of all the sampling points out there is about 30. There's 27 monitoring wells and 3 piezometers in Cold Springs Brook. So we did a snapshot of all of the monitoring points on the site. And again, after about a month of operation, it was August 1st to the 4th. And so it is just one data point. There is, we're measuring these PFAS concentrations down to the parts per trillion level. So as you can imagine, when you're looking that low or that small of a concentration, there can be some variability. But overall, the results we feel have been very positive, just based on the preliminary data that came in. So recovery. The most impacted well on the site is monitoring well MW1, and it's right next to the recovery well. Again, the yellow dot right in the middle of the circle there. Thank you very much. Perfect. So right at that location, that's always historically generally been our most impacted well. We look at that a little bit as the canary in the coal mine. It's our most impacted location. It's ranged up to 1,400 in the past, and most recently it was actually 1,181 in May. Right, it was our last data point before the remedial system started operating. On August 4th, when we sampled it, the laboratory results came back with a reduction down to 132. So it went from 1,400 in February to 1,181 in May, and then we started operating the system, and it's reduced just in a month of operation down to 132.8. So about a 90% reduction after a month. Obviously, we feel this is a pretty positive sign, but we don't want to hang our hat just on one data point and one well. Looking at some of the other wells around in the cone of depression, and this is again where the pumping has decreased the groundwater table, and it creates flow into the recovery well. So we look at the wells that are immediately being impacted by this, and there has been some reductions. For instance, 102S, which is right south or below the remedial trench to the south. Yep, right in there. That was actually during one report. That was one of our highest wells at a maximum of 825. That went from 184. Again, these are parts per trillion units on these numbers. So it went from 184 parts per trillion in the May sampling event, right before the system started operating, down to 11.6. And as a point of reference, the Massachusetts standard for these PFAS 6 chemicals, it's sort of 6 of the most common of these PFAS compounds. We sum them up, and the standard of those summation of the 6 compounds is actually 20 parts per trillion. So if you're below that number, Massachusetts Bureau of Wayside Cleanup looks at that as not being or not posing a risk. So just in that month of operation, we actually reduced it down to below standards. And again, this is just one data point after a month of operation. We want to look at the long-term trends, but certainly operation thus far has been favorable. So just pointing out some of the other features of this figure that we've again just recently generated. The capture zone is in yellow on this figure, and again, this is where we think where groundwater is flowing across the site that the recovery well is actually capturing. Overall, the design of the system. Again, we're very pleased not only with the analytical results, but the red and the yellow hatching areas. This is where it's a cost benefit analysis. How big of a recovery well? How much of an area do we think we're going to capture? And this was generally as designed. We were hoping to capture this wide of an area with the one recovery well, rather than additional expenses for adding additional recovery wells and having to treat more groundwater. So I guess I'll stop there. I guess in summary, the operation of the remedial system, we did put through a lot of effort in the last, call it, 6-7 months. We've only been on this case for about 18 months, and in that time, we've done a lot of assessment. Think we've got our arms around the nature and extent, identified a remedial option, implemented it, and so far so good. So I guess I'll pause there.
Any questions?
Paul, just a couple things since you're here. You had a couple concerns in your report too. Wasn't there a well on the Water District property that had an elevated level I don't want to,
Sure.
I don't want to say, oh, we're only giving you good news, but it just, go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, so there's, I mean, there's variability. There's, we're monitoring 30 points. So memory of the points and a lot of the very elevated ones that we were targeting with our remedial system did decrease, but of concern to us, and I'm sure Bruce is about to speak to this. Monitoring well 114, the shallow one across on the North Chelmsford Water District property, it went from about 60 parts per trillion to 85. We saw a little bit of an increase on that, and I again caution that it's one data point. Just the favorable news. Hey, we decreased 90% in MW1. There was a little bit of an increase in a few wells that we saw, and one of them being the North Chelmsford Water District 114S, and that's a sentinel well. That's an early warning indicator. We wanted to measure the trends with those locations, and we saw a little bit of an increase in it, and it's something we'll watch as we move forward. But this is again, it's in groundwater. We just started operation of the system. The whole groundwater aquifer is we're starting to pump on it and put some stress on it. So it's not quite as an equilibrium as we thought it may have been previously, and so things may change. But we want to watch the trends on this. So it's just one data point. We'll keep a close eye on it, and as we will with all the other data points out there. So.
And I think you had a similar one in the dog park. There was one with an elevated reading as well, right? So that's the same application there.
Sure. So the dog park well is a little trickier of a scenario. So Mass DEP, just to address that, MW 104 over in the center of the dog park, initially had a very elevated reading. It was about 551, and in our approval for the remedial system, they actually wanted us to track the trends on that, and if needed, we would have to expand the remedial system over there. And one of the interesting notes over there is that DEP looked at the data as did we, and they looked at the ratios of the different PFAS compounds, and one of their conclusions was that, as was ours, is that there might be a secondary source of PFAS over in that location. I'll say that the dog park well, the high again was the maximum was 551 parts per trillion back in I think it was April of 2021. Currently in our August sampling, it's down to 12.53. Great, sounds like a really good increase. But some of the other wells, MW 118 and some of the wells right along Richardson Road, we saw a little bit of an increase there too. So again, I'd caution you, it's one data point. We noted it. We don't want to, we want to look at all the data. Overall, it looks favorable, but there's a couple outliers and anomalies that we want to track and make sure it's not a concern.
And two final questions in terms of stress and. Do you have any sense? We obviously came through a summer with an extraordinary drought in July and the testing. Do you think that has any impact, or we don't know in terms of what that may do to the situation that's out there?
Yeah, it's hard for us to tell because, again, we just started operating the system and we only have a month of data and we have started operating in drought conditions, right? So that's, it's kind of hard to unravel that data until, maybe when we come out of the drought conditions, maybe we'll see some change, and then we'll be able to tease out some conclusions like that and see if the drought conditions are actually, a contributor, or maybe they're help. We just don't know what that effect is. So I think, again, another one of these with a little more data, during system operation, that might help us answer that question. Is this causing an increase, but it was masked by the operation of the system? We just don't know. So.
And then final question that I have is the upgradient sites. I mean, obviously we're talking a lot about on the site and down gradient. What are you seeing for readings again coming into the site that's natural from the environment or whatever's flowing into the DPW yard? What are you seeing for readings there?
Yeah, no, very good question. So Cold Springs Brook, we actually installed 3 piezometers and we started monitoring those in the spring. And we did detect some of the PFAS just in the stream itself at a concentration, I believe it was in the 40s, on the most upgraded location. So that was WSPZ3 is the most upgraded location. So that would be on the easternmost edge, or the right hand side of that figure, is again the upgradient side. The groundwater on this figure flows from right to left or east to west generally, and that is the water that's coming from the site. So we're looking at, and one of the reasons we installed the piezometers and started sampling them is looking at these off-site sources, or it could be potential background. There's been a lot of news articles that PFAS seems to be ubiquitous everywhere. They're finding in the top of Mount Everest and just about everywhere these these days. So it does appear, and this, again, another conclusion that we came to looking at the ratios of PFAS compounds that DEP also noted in their evaluation, that seems to be a different source than the higher concentrations we see in MW1 and in the center of the plume near that building. So I guess stay tuned on that. We're still looking at those concentrations. We only have a couple data points, but it is noted that those concentrations a maximum of 40. And off the top of my head, we've had detections in all of the piezometer samples we're collecting around, in the 15s and 20 sort of range. So there's certainly a background contributor of PFAS that we're evaluating.
Thank you. Anything else?
So you're expecting that over time, this is going to give you some indication of source? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think we want to, we've only got a couple data points in the Cold Springs Brook piezometers. So, after a while, if that data is consistent over the seasonal variations that we see, or, when we went out in August, I don't believe we actually got a sample from PZ1. It was dry. Obviously, it's a drought out there. So as conditions change and we want to look at, seasonal variations, so next spring, they very well may high flow. It may change the concentrations, but we're looking at it with an eye towards what are the contributors to PFAS on the site. And it really goes to the end remedial goal. So if there's a ubiquitous 20 parts per trillion that's everywhere all over the region, it's obviously not reasonable for us to expect to clean up below that. So that's, I guess, probably the end result of us looking at the secondary source is how clean is clean and what are our remedial goals.
Are there any other questions from the board? Bruce Harper, does the North Chelmsford Water District have any input?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to, through the board, just ask a few questions to Paul McKinley, if allowed.
You okay with that?
Sure,
Paul?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I do want to commend Paul for his effort. I mean, the detection levels are significantly down. I did plot a chart today. 16 of the MW wells in the piezometers. There's 16 still over the MCL 20. 17 wells did show an increase. 12 showed a decrease, and 17 showed no, I got it wrong. Sorry about that. 17 showed a decrease. 12 of them showed an increase. But overall, the picture's looking very good. I just got kind of a little thing I want to read off to Paul McKinley and the board. I believe we have provided all the requested information to evaluate the North Chelmsford Water District position that the town of Chelmsford should agree to pay the entire cost of the granule activated carbon filter exchange when it's due from the PFAS contamination, and that you agree with the information and conclusion when I sent to Paul McKinley that I provided, that I hope it's significant to what he needed. And I also want to go on to the extent that MW1, the main source of PFAS contamination, shows a significant decrease, which is great, because the remediation is intercepted, in my opinion, the plume of PFAS contamination. But it does not address the effects of the PFAS contamination already beyond the remediation system and its continuing effect on the activated carbon filters going forward. I don't know if Paul can answer that.
Thank you, Bruce. The subject of Chelmsford's responsibility in the water district's cost is not part of this discussion this evening.
Did Paul get enough information, Virginia, on the, he did ask me for a bunch of information regarding iron, manganese, pH, chlorides, so forth. I did address all those questions. I never got a response back if that was sufficient.
Is that?
We haven't had a chance to meet with Paul Haverty.
So Bruce.
No, this is Paul McKinney, yes.
Yeah, they have, Paul Cohen and Paul McKinley need to meet with Town Council Paul Haverty, and that has not occurred yet, so we're not going to get into that discussion this evening.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the data?
No.
Okay. Paul Cohen, did you want to go to the other attachment?
Yeah, well, we'll bring it up to the other task force. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us. we've now heard the results, but at this point now, we need to finish the system in terms of the operational and testing and such through the remainder of this fiscal year. And also, Paul McKinley can go over some unexpected costs that they encountered while they were installing the system. And again, Christine Clancy's here as well, so that we're all sort of teaming up overseeing this effort. So you can see the estimated fee, or what we're looking for to bring to town meeting next month, would be just over $250,000. And I guess, Paul, I'll turn it over to you to just give an overview of all the tasks, without going into them in great detail.
Sure, yeah, I mean, and again, jump in if I'm going into too much detail or too little, but I know the town was interested in we've revised the scope a few times, but we wanted to get a comprehensive scope to anticipate operating the system, do the required groundwater monitoring, the reporting to Mass DEP, which is pretty substantial, and so we tried to capture all of the costs that we could foresee in the scope. And then task 2 is probably the one. This is as we were doing the remedial system install. Our original estimate, we did that. Again, we submitted it just a few days after we had got DEP approval, and using our best efforts at an estimate, time and materials. I think we all, as the team, we pulled together and did I thought a pretty remarkable job getting a system out there pretty quickly in times. And so one of the overages that we had was the system components themselves, and I outlaid a few of the issues there. For instance, the control panel, we'd estimated 15,000. The control panel came back at 42,000, and as you can imagine, not only are we having in pandemic times a shortage of computer chips. I'm sure everybody's heard of that in the news, but you've also heard of PFAS in the news. So everybody seems to be wanting PFAS remedial components at the same time. So between the vessels and the piping and the control panel, it just the costs escalated. I heard in Christine's previous presentation about the escalation of HVAC costs. Well, no surprise, we were hit with the same. So we might have underestimated how much the pandemic and some of the premiums on these components were. And there was other things. I will note that during the system install, the DPW staff from Chelmsford, we relied on an original estimate, cooperating with them. They helped us in a lot of the trenching and interior system components, and they were fantastic to work with. So that was a shout out, and I think that resulted in a lot of cost savings. But the additional system install costs, it did come over about $68,000 over our estimate. It was a time and materials estimate. I mean, we could have done this, I guess, as a lump sum, and we probably would have given it a higher contingency, a 20% contingency given all the unknowns. That would have resulted, in a profit for Weston and Sampson. But obviously, this we're not looking for that. We were looking to do it on a time and materials basis. We came in, roughly about 10%, a little over budget, which we, given all the uncertainty, the system really wasn't it wasn't designed really when we put the scope together. We overall felt that was pretty close to the mark. On some of these other ones, the O&M inspections, this is weekly visits to the site, doing compliance sampling. The PFAS samples themselves aren't cheap. They're about $300 a piece. Dozens and dozens of compliance samples, the influent, effluent. We've included some midpoint samples. DEP did come out and did a system inspection. At the time, I don't think we've heard a formal response, but Christine was there, and the overall was a very favorable visit. But some of their concerns was trying to anticipate the breakthrough on the carbon vessels and the treatment that we have. So we actually proactively included a few sort of midpoint samples to try and calculate when the media that treats the PFAS needs to be replaced. A couple items just to walk through. Task 3, control panel, remote access. So to potentially reduce some of the cost of the O&M inspections, and that's by operation and maintenance of the system, out there checking the pressure, make sure there's no iron fouling of the system and undue pressure on the pump that could break a pipe. We were proposing to do a remote access. So the control panel, we did have did order and install on the site has the flexibility to do remote access. So I know the town, in discussions with Christine, actually has a system where they can remote monitor a lot of their systems. So we could either wire that into the town's sort of monitoring system, or add additional components of the remedial system onto the current monitoring, and that will actually could help us reduce the amount of O&M visits we have. So currently it's weekly, potentially with these additions, the remote access, the remote monitoring, what's the pressure in the bag filters, what's the pressure in the carbon vessels. If it starts to increase, we can send somebody out there, but those are the control panel modifications that we're discussing. Same with the system modifications. There's a few system modifications, and this also is a budget to help troubleshoot any operations. So we're in September now, but we're talking about 9 months of system operation. It's going through the winter months. This includes some heat taping on some of the pipe that wasn't quite installed, and a few other tidbits. Just generally improving the system, and there's a little bit of replumbing that'll help us sort of backwash the system and remove carbon without removing the treatment media. So it's a cost savings that we're proposing. Task 5, this is just a quarterly groundwater monitoring. I will note that currently, as I stated earlier, we're doing 30 monitoring points out here. We're hoping that now we have some seasonal data, a year of seasonal data, we can eliminate some of these wells out here and get that number down to less than 20 points. So we were proposing 17 monitoring wells, continuing to monitor the piezometers. By eliminating 10 of these monitoring points, again, at $300 a sample, it's a significant cost savings. The rest of this, the IRA status report, this is an immediate response action. We've got to report these results to Mass DEP. We do have our monitoring. We do have a scope to monitor groundwater through the remainder of 2022. So this would take us into the first, the fiscal year through June of 2023. So that's one IRA status report, and the task 7 is these remedial monitoring reports. We have to gather all the system operational data, the influent effluent results, and report that on a monthly basis to DEP. And then the last one is a little bit of a budget here to attend meetings such as this one, and communicate to DEP and others as necessary. So that's the scope.
Paul Cohen?
Yes.
Where do you expect to take the 254 from?
I think we'll take that from free cash at town meeting. We're waiting certification from the Department of Revenue, from the town accountant, and in 2 weeks, whether we have it or not, Darlene's going to come in and present. Basically, the Department of Revenue has basically told communities, tell us the date of your town meetings, and we'll get you your free cash certification in time for your town meetings. So that's been submitted by Darlene. She hasn't received feedback from the Department of Revenue, but based upon her submittal, which we would fund this from that account.
And I understand there were things here with procurement chains and things, but do we have conversations with our contractors, or in this case with Weston and Sampson, about their project management systems and controls, and early indicators, or having those types of dialogues on cost management?
Yeah, I mean, Christine can join me. We politely, you're being very polite in your question. I think the answer is we were not aware of these overruns until we requested this breakdown and analysis, because, again, I'm thinking ahead in terms of fall town meeting. What do we need to finish the fiscal year? And then that's when all of this came to light. So again, we were told we were on schedule. We had that brief extension of about a week to get everything operational to the July 5th date. And I don't know if Paul wants to comment on it, but no, we were not informed of this along the way. So, because again, we're trying to be mindful of, meaning Christine and myself, of keeping the board informed en route in terms of how are things happening.
And
what's going
my
on
question
out there.
is about, okay, so what do we learn from this?
Yeah.
And do we have, when we are working with our suppliers and our subcontractors, do we have things built into the contract execution that give us, do we have conversations about project management and cross controls and when we raise flags? And the other part to my question, and I mentioned this to you one-on-one, is there a way to look at how our contracts are structured in terms of cost share on overruns or things like that.
How it works,
Or
and
incentives.
how it works in general is you have monthly requisitions in which you're paying invoices for work done, and then you're also having weekly on-site construction meetings, whether you're doing this type of a system or you're building a school or whatever you're doing. Those are the ongoing monitoring and compliance issues. This was such a end rush at the end in terms of when they could get the equipment, how they could install it, that sort of was outside of the norm in terms of our normal, supervisory process. I don't know if there's anything, Christine, you want to add to that since, from your perspective.
I would agree with Paul that it's really should be monitored on a weekly basis so that if we know of any changes, I guess the timing of this is I came on board and this project was already underway. But I think, moving forward, it's really looking at if there's a change in cost, I want to know immediately. And that would be caught in the weekly. Sometimes smaller projects have biweekly meetings every other week. So we should be able to capture that on, a pretty short time frame. That's the measures we have in place. And as far as our contracts, I think we are looking at our contracts and seeing best ways to maybe improve them. I haven't found in our contracts anything that I guess flags this as being something that's missing. I think it's just more just the communication and those frequent meetings and knowing of any potential cost overruns.
Do you want to add anything, Paul, from your perspective?
Yeah, no, and this one, it was a rush at the end, all the costs, certainly the vendor costs. And what happened, just a little bit here is that there were a lot of these costs, as you can imagine, the bulk of it is vendor costs. And so as we were nearing the end of the system install, we didn't have timely invoices, or a lot of the system components had changed from original install, like the control panel, the design went back and forth a few times. And so at the end, all of the invoices and a lot of the labor charges, there was a rush right at the end, all hit. And so we were tracking, I will say, right on budget. And Weston and Sampson, as we were a sizable firm with some support, and we were tracking on budget. And unfortunately, there was a few things at the end, some invoices that we actually identified that had not come in from our vendors is what pushed us over. So we sort of proactively evaluated the budget, looked at it and went, it was tracking on budget, but they're missing a few critical invoices that pushed us over at the end, coupled with a lot of the labor just pushing it over the hump with the punch list. Sort of all hit at the end, and we identified it. And as soon as we identified it, I let Christine know when we were out on the site. But it was unfortunate, sort of, massive events that happened. And again, we were expediting the system install. A lot of activity happened. We had a lot of people working on the system at Weston and Sampson to get it done by the DEP's deadline, which we did. But it created a little bit of a bottleneck right at the end that sort of hit us, and that was unfortunate. So I was really hoping to pull this in on budget, but at the end there was a few items that didn't make it into our tracking.
Paul Cohen, I'm just thinking, even thinking about all the ARPA projects and the overruns we're projecting because of procurement chains. Is there something proactive that we want to think about in terms of writing something into the bid documents or requiring, as part of the proposal, something about project management and cost controls? Is there something we want to think about in terms of, do we want to look at firm fixed price contracts issues or some type of cost share if there should be overruns or something like that? So I'm not just trying to hang on this. I'm thinking about all these other procurements we have ahead of us, and the same challenges are going to be there.
No, our procurement,
in this post-COVID environment.
No, our procurements are generally fixed project costs. So, for example, this evening we're coming in to give you the bid, ask for request approval for the bid award for the McKay Library HVAC.
Yeah,
that's a fixed price contract.
Okay,
and therefore that's what it is. And barring extraordinary unforeseen conditions in the building, things that would not be known at the time of the bid, so forth, that's what we're going to honor. What happened here is this was a time and materials contract, and we generally don't bid time and materials contracts. I think, like you said, this was sort of an extraordinary situation because of the constraint that we had in terms of getting the system operational. But no, we're not going to see this. So when we come in and say, hey, here's the bid award for McKay HVAC, and other items that you see on there, those are fixed price contracts. So no, I don't think you're not going to see a trend of what we're discussing right now.
Were you going to say something, Mark?
No, I think he just kind of answered it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions from the board? Paul McKinley, thank you very much for everything you've done for us at the site.
Oh, thank you very much. And
We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
yeah, we'll be in touch, and I'm sure I'll be in front of you to report hopefully more favorable results as the trends continue and we track them. So so far so good.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Christine. I'm going to grab George. Bring George back.
Sorry. Computer fell asleep.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
That's when I went outside, I took a call, he handed me a piece of paper. And he had all the information, it wasn't right.
Okay, so next we're on the warrant, Paul?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, I have before you, per schedule, is the warrant for the October 17th fall annual town meeting. As the board knows, at the last two meetings, I provided you with preliminary drafts. The final warrant, there's nothing new on the final warrant. In fact, a couple warrant articles dropped out. So we have 26 articles for the warrant for October 17th. Town Council Paul Haverty has reviewed the warrant and actually helped prepare a couple of the final two articles having to do with street acceptances and roadway easements and so forth. So we request your approval this evening to sign the warrant for the fall annual town meeting. In hearing from the chair of the Finance Committee, they're prepared to begin their review of the warrant is this Thursday evening, and then we'll also schedule review for the board's recommendations at your upcoming next meeting and following meeting. So we're, like I said, we're getting close to fall town meeting at this point in time.
Okay. Any comments before we take a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve and sign the warrant for the 2022 fall annual town meeting to be held on October 17th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you. I'll work with the town clerk and constable to get the warrant posted and issued. And then under bid awards, I have one item. This is the McKay Library HVAC ventilation improvement project. Department of Public Works put this project out to bid. There were two bids received as presented. We're recommending the award to the lowest qualified bidder, which was Thomas Snowden, in the amount of $128,000. As you can see, the other bid was submitted by Picard Construction at $133,709, and our budget for this entire project is $150,000 is what we have on the ARPA project list. So again, we'd seek the board's confirmation of this bid award and begin the work to improve the HVAC at the McCarthy.
Do
I'm
we
sorry,
know-
McKay Library.
Do we know when and how long it'll take?
Go ahead, Christine, you want to speak to this, details of...
Just gonna work on it tonight.
Yeah, we'll start. So we have already been in communication with the lowest bidder just because we want to get a handle on procurement of the equipment and the lead time. And the equipment I think when we first started this process, asking for lead time, I think we're looking at 12 to 18 weeks. And then it's potentially, it was 12 weeks and then it jumped to 18 weeks. So we're trying to now understand what that timeline is. But if it is closer to the 18 weeks, that pushes us to December, January. But there is some prep work that can be done beforehand. So my guess is that at some point this winter, they'll get in, they have to build a hatch, and so we can actually bring the equipment in to the basement right from the entryway. That can be done ahead of time, and then when we have the equipment, that will just be the last piece. So I guess right now, we were anticipating to have this work done this fall, but we might have to amend the timeline depending on that procurement, because like I said, just from the beginning of the bid to the end of the bid, it potentially jumped 6 weeks, and then we're trying to understand right now has that changed at all? So we don't have a definitive update other than it's likely looking now more like a winter time frame. But some work can happen ahead of time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
I'll make a motion to award the bid for the McKay Library HVAC ventilation improvements project to the Thomas E. Snowden Company, the amount of $128,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, under my report this evening, the first item I have is the August sewer flows. Again, the data from the DPW that I receive monthly is on there. You can see the flow for August is 59.44, which is extraordinary. And it's probably better depicted on the next slide, which shows you sort of the monthly flows. And you can see August, and I've highlighted there, is 59.44. To put it in perspective, last August was 81. And again, August before that was 60, almost 70, let's say, and then 74. To put it into more recent times, because again, July was a drought, it was 67. And if you go back to the far right second row there, fiscal 22, you see June was 69.18. You can see on that entire chart, there's nothing with the 59 number. And you can see the numbers don't fall into the 70s other than this extraordinary summer period that we just had. So again, I've shared this data with John Potts, who's the consultant who's working with us in terms of the whole analysis of the sewer system and so forth. At this point, you know, we're obviously monitoring going forward, and we're going to curious to see what September brings, and obviously going forward. Obviously, what was different in September is we had a extraordinary heavy rainfall, but yet since then, again, it's been rather, dry, and it looks like it's going to be continued dry for the next week. But again, this sort of underlines our suspicion that has to be inflow issues in our system, that yes, some of the summers are choppy because of COVID and so forth, but to have outliers like this just indicates that there's got to be some inflow, most likely from sump pumps. And again, I'm working with Christine to probably launch a pilot program to address and get some sense on the inflow issues and see if there's something we can do, because this is just extraordinary, in terms of the flows. I don't know any way to describe it other than, we probably have seen a wet season, a wet year like we had a few years ago, and now we're obviously seeing an extraordinary dry year that we're in right now. Anything you want to add, Christine, or is that pretty much it? In terms of sewer flow. No, I just don't want to leave anything out because it is.
I think that's a good start. So yeah, the two really causes with private inflow likely from roof leaders. So there could be some roof leaders connected into the system, but really sump pumps. And so with the groundwater being so low, and I mean, there's definitely, this is an indication that, like Paul said, that there has to be some inflow in the system. So I think we can't just tackle the whole problem, but looking at a pilot program. And so I think the first would be to look at sump pumps, and we can probably quickly identify areas, neighborhoods that have some sump pumps. You do inspections, and then you would from there make some recommendations on removal. And I think at least part of the pilot, we would potentially, and this could even be ARPA funded or funded through our enterprise, to maybe remove some of those sump pumps. Over time, there would be a policy where maybe, some pumps are not supposed to be connected to the system as it is right now. So, but we just need to tackle it as a pilot program.
So this pilot program would validate the hypothesis somehow?
Yeah, well, I mean, it would show, because I guess we know there's inflow in the system, we have to find out where it is. So the pilot program would help identify where it might be. And I mean, it's going to be probably in the areas, the lower areas where people commonly have sump pumps. Also, maybe looking at some buildings with roof leaders that might, that's something you can easily inspect. If you see them going into the ground, it either goes to the ground or it goes to the sewer. And then it is also will serve as a cost-benefit analysis. What does it take to remove that inflow for the system, and what's that cost? So it will also help understand the cost to remove 10 sump pumps or how many sump pumps from residential properties. I've been part of private inflow removal programs now almost 10 years ago, and it was a community. It was a little different. They were separating their system. We have a separated system, so we have an opportunity to take the sump pump and put it into our storm drain. So
An opportunity to do what?
to put the sump pumps in our storm drain system. Or there might be opportunities to put it to, if people have yards and it could be accommodated in yards, there's other options. But we do have a storm drain system where we could potentially just redirect. It does require, trenching to the storm drain versus putting, right now it's connected to the sewer, but there's opportunity to put some pumps to our storm drain system. That's all I just wanted to add, to elaborate on that program.
Thank you.
The more information will be coming on that as we develop it.
And then before Christine steps away, related to the next thing, we are nearing, next month is the end of the moratorium, and Christine is quickly trying to, work together to the post-moratorium sewer connection policy. So we're mindful of that, and that sort of transitions to the next item in terms of the draft sewer bank policy. I have another revision for you that incorporated some of the comments from the last meeting. It really isn't significantly materially different, and so what we're trying to do is by next month sort of bring in the sewer policy and the sewer bank policy, into reality, I guess, the best way to describe it, by the end of next month, as we near the end of October expiration of the sewer moratorium.
So there were two steps that I think we still have remaining.
Yep.
One was, we're going to put it on an agenda,
Yep.
as an agenda item on Monday with the planning board.
Yep.
To get their input. So will you make sure that they get copies of this?
I've already sent them, but I'll send them this revision as well. I sent them the previous one.
And then I after that discussion, is that when we're going to decide when we want to have public input?
Yes, I think, yes, because we want to have it early, we don't want to, sooner is better, so I think we're probably looking somewhere at the beginning of October to have input, and then, like you said, to have a policy adopted by the end of October.
Okay.
Thank you. So again, with the policy that's there before you, it does not differ much I made some stylistic changes in terms of the end, in terms of trying to break out the transferring of the sewer units, from the, sections that had interior sections of Section 3 having to do with the sewer bank itself. And so again, the goal would be to sort of, at this point, would be to get some mapping done, and then, as you said, have the discussion next Monday night, and then bring it to the public, and perhaps some, receive some community input in the hopes of finalizing this, by the, next month.
So I just have a kind of I guess maybe a rhetorical question.
Sure.
If not a true question. On 3.1, where it says the property owner may accrue 1 gallon per day of new flow credit for every 2 gallons of II removed. So that means if they remove their sump pump from going into the sewer, they can claim credit for that? Even though they shouldn't be doing that?
Yeah, but I don't know how they would sell, I don't know how they could sell that, in terms of, for a credit, how you would do that.
As I said, it's probably, it's maybe more a rhetorical
Yeah,
Might
question.
it's
even
more a
say
rhetorical
something along the
question,
lines, unless, the infiltration was unauthorized.
Yeah.
You could just say something
Right.
simple like that.
Remo-
Don't worry
Removal
about
of
it.
legal infiltration.
There you go,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be
Yeah,
clear.
either way, I think you got to stipulate that someplace.
Yeah, that's all.
Legal inflow, I&I inflow, or I&I flow.
Yep. Okay.
And the final thing having to do with sewer is, I have the email from John Potts, who's working on the study that's due next month, again, on the Littleton Road sewer repair alternatives and so forth. But again, mindful of the fact that we're approaching fall town meeting, I reached out to him a couple weeks ago and said, John, can you give me some information, at least some insights on where you're at, so that way I can at least, prepare for fall town meeting and whether to bring funding forward. And this is what he has, and he really he wants to come, as I said, once he's completed his work, because, as he noted, he's still reviewing other less costly alternatives for the Littleton Road sewer repair alternatives. But I think the noteworthy things here is, he does have an estimated total cost in a worst-case scenario of about $5.3 million if to install the relief line on Littleton Road. However, I think the good news is that's not coming this year and it's not immediate. He's, again, reviewing other less costly alternatives, and we're also looking at, is there a way to get some assistance from the state in terms of, funding or zero-interest loans and so forth, if that were to come into reality. The other thing that I asked him as well is I said, John, I wrote to him, I said, John, remember, we also wanted you to look at what were the root causes. In other words, how did this come to be out in that area? And so, again, I told him that, and I have not received any information on that at this point, but we know that the board had asked, and I've asked, how did this occur? So, again, hoping and expecting that he will have that information next month when he reports to us. The other thing, which is more timely in terms of town meeting, is the idea of following up on the action of, well, how can we investigate what we have out there to prevent further outbreaks, such as what happened at Southwell. And what he describes is that there is a technology that they're utilizing as opposed to the current system of, well, you cut the pipe and then you sort of see what you have here and making an assessment. And what he's looking at is doing an analysis of the 5 oldest sewer force mains, which are basically Richardson Road, Progress Avenue, Katrina Road, Southwell, and Kensington, the 5 big ones in the town, and sort of having that analysis. He projects that analysis would cost $1.1 million to do that, which roughly amounts to over 20,000 linear feet of pipe testing, as you can see listed there.
Wasn't Southwell already done?
Well, but that was only done at the pump station. This would basically run Southwell, 6,300 feet. This would basically run right through the system. So again, that's sort of what we're looking at, and there is an article on the Warrant that would provide funding, and again, for prevention of sewer main breaks, in terms of, because we know, unfortunately, now in 2 instances, how costly it is to have to respond in an emergency situation to address those situations. So that's what we have at this point, is, to do that analysis. And then the other thing for long-term thinking, he does say, you would then have to, do further investigations, the next year, as you're moving through the system, which I think was part of the DEP's request, that we go out there and assess what we have out there. Now, again, I'm hopeful, given that the age of our system, that we can go back to DEP if we take this kind of investment and say, hey, look, given the age of our system and given what we're finding out there, can we, scale back or reduce the inspections to more of our traditional camera type of inspections, which we've been doing and continue to do over our system to look for breaks, because this is considerable cost when you recognize the extent of sewer mains across the community. And yes, these are the oldest iron force mains in Chelmsford, but so we are mindful of that going forward. But this is what he has for us at this point in time, in terms of going in and seeing, is there a bigger problem, or was it really an anomaly having to do with the curve and the electrolysis and everything at that Southwell station, and what we saw over at Progress Ave. So this is where we are at this point.
Any questions?
The next item of treatment of weeds in Freeman Lake. I provided you with the correspondence that came from David Kuntz, our conservation agent, from the DEP. As the board's aware, we're at the end of the lifeguard and swimming season, essentially. The DEP did not approve the lake treatment plan. In speaking to David and sort of discussing where we're at, we think the best way to proceed is to bring a committee together of members of the Conservation Commission, David, and some of the residents who expressed concerns at the lake together, form a committee, and then work as sort of almost suggested by the DEP, sort of saying, okay, is there a consensus in terms of what to do out there. This is on the agenda for the commission's meeting tomorrow evening, in terms of the next steps, in terms of my hope and goal would be that the commission will lead that dialogue, have that discussion, come back and do some analysis, either late fall or in the spring, in terms of weed treatment out at Freeman Lake, and then proceed, hopefully with everybody bought in and under agreement. The alternative approach basically would have been to, as suggested, just, supply additional information in response to the notice of intent. But I think this is probably a more measured approach and hopefully a holistic approach where, we know there were concerns that, again, arose at the 11th hour when we were preparing this before the commission. So that's how we're proceeding at this point in time, is to bring everybody to the table through the commission, which is the permitting authority in the town for the lake treatment, even recognizing in the back of my mind at least, and I think the DEP, because their manual allowed for the type of treatment that we were doing and called for it. So I think at the end of the day, hopefully we can get a better sense of what's out there and perhaps agreement that this is what should be done. Now, their pushback was, well, look, this year there weren't any weed issues. And again, we say, yeah, but this was an extraordinary year because of the drought and weather conditions, that we didn't have the weed infestation. And one could argue the other point, that last year, when it was a wet July and you were getting the runoff into the lake, you had an extraordinary year of infestation. So again, I think the hope is that, we can reach a consensus. And I think ultimately it should reach the state of where we are at Hart Pond, which is, you're at a state where you're just doing routine annual maintenance with spot treating, and everybody's comfortable. So that's where we are at this point. The next thing I want to report to you is, this has to do with the acquisition of the municipal parking lot. You remember one of the action items there was the transfer of the down gradient status to the town, because we're now the acquirer of the property in terms of the off-site historic contamination efforts that were out there. And Ransom Engineering has completed that work for the town. So in fact, I just wanted the board to know that we did follow through on this, and we're now sort of legally recognized, and notice has been provided to the sites that were responsible for the outflow to put us on the mailing list and distribution lists and so forth.
Do we need anything from the DEP to acknowledge this?
Yes, they're part of the notification
They are?
process.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of all of what the work is that was involved with all of this. So that's where we are at this
So
point.
just kind of not for nothing, I guess. I don't think we needed 11 copies of this letter to all 11 people that it was sent to.
Again, I just want to show you the depth of who it is, because this is extraordinary. I know you probably didn't need it for the packet, but I just wanted to show you, because this costs several thousand dollars. It wasn't cheap, and it needed to be done. But I just wanted to sort of give the board the full extent of the scope of what this entails. Thank you. And then the last thing I have, and sort of brings it around, is since our last meeting, we've received correspondence and information from the Middlesex County Retirement Board of the actuarial evaluation and review for the retirement system. And it's a long-winded way of saying we now know our retirement board assessments for the upcoming 2 fiscal years. And the news is not good. And again, this was an evaluation as of January 1st, 2022. So it doesn't reflect the downturn in the market in the current calendar year. And the retirement board does this every 2 years. So the end result is right now our retirement board assessment for the year we're in right now is $10,538,132, so roughly $10.5 million. The budget that we're going to be preparing for and discussing in the next few months, the retirement assessment goes up by $795,420, or 7.55%. And then the following year, it goes up by $744,600, or 6.57%. So obviously, that's a known factor as we're now getting into the budget mode for the upcoming year. And we're now starting to see the pieces come together, and I'm mindful of the board's request that you be brought in early as we're getting information. This is one piece. Next meeting, as I said, Darlene's going to come in and give you the closeout of the last fiscal year on, June 30th. Hopefully we have our free cash certified, but as I said earlier, she will at least give you what she submitted for the balance sheet. We'll also be giving you an overview of what we're seeing at this point. This is one piece, the $800,000 or 7.5% increase in the retirement board. We're also seeing an increase, the early indications from our health insurer is that, again, in this inflationary environment, which is also affecting healthcare costs, we should be planning for an 8% increase in our healthcare premiums. So we'll have that information next month. We're also going out to bid, and I know Christine just left. We'll be preparing to issue a bid. Our trash and recycling collection contracts are coming up for renewal in the new fiscal year. We need to get that out this fall, so we'll be here discussing the draft procurement of that next meeting. We know that's going up. Not only is our tipping fee going up, but also the collection costs, aside from fuel adjustment for labor, to collect recycling and solid waste, because we're at the end of the 5-year cycle. We know costs are going up, so we'll have that information. Basically, we're going to do, just give you an early preview of what we've done in the past. We're going to bid it all ways. We're going to bid what we have now, 5 days a week, manual collection of recycling and solid waste. We're also going to ask for, what would it cost for automated collection? Does that save any money? But also recognizing that you have to buy the carts. So we're going to that. So the goal would be, by the end of this calendar year, December, that we would have the bids in hand and making an award. 2 reasons. One is we need to know for budget, but the other thing is if you're issuing a contract, the vendors need to know, because that leaves them with 6+ months to line up their equipment, if it's trucks and so forth, to take on Chelmsford if they're not already doing so, as well as the fact if we are going towards an automated collection, you'd also have to get the carts ordered and so forth. So again, I just wanted to get this information out to you in a timely manner. And as I said, next meeting we'll have more details. As we begin our process, and what will happen also in the next 2 weeks is John Souza will be sending out the capital budget request to department heads. And so again, that whole process is starting, and then on October 1st, we'll go out the operating budget request. So that concludes my report for this evening. I do have one appointment for your confirmation, and this is really an ex officio appointment to formally appoint Lexi Lattimore to the CCA Advisory Committee as a committee member. One is it helps with the quorum, but it also helps and ensures that she's, can participate fully and be part of the discussions of that advisory committee. So I'd seek the board's confirmation of the appointment of Lexi Lattimore to the CCA Advisory Committee.
How long is the term?
At this point, it's ex officio, so we generally don't define a term for that because it sort of goes with the position.
Well, how long is a term on the advisory committee?
The advisory terms, I'd say, why don't we usually do it, I believe that was to the end of the
June.
Ones that was the end of the calendar fiscal year. So if the board's comfortable, we can do it through June 30th, 2023, and see where we're at.
So I'll make a motion to accept the town manager's appointment of Lexi Lattimore to the CCA Advisory Committee with the term expiring June 2023.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Next up, we have the Select Board regular session minutes for August 22nd. Are there any amendments before we take a motion?
I have one, even though I wasn't here.
Sure.
The section where we discuss the fire hydrants, et cetera, if you could just correct the spelling on my name.
Could you tell me what page you're on?
I don't recall the page, I read it yesterday, but it's where we discussed the fire
page
hydration
5.
in relation to the.
Page 5, first line.
Fire.
Okay, yep.
Thank you. Yeah, there it is.
Any other amendments? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the regular meeting minutes from the August 22nd, 2022 Select Board
Second.
as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions?
Aye.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. I have an announcement on releasability. The minutes for August 22nd, 2022 executive session were deemed releasable, and the minutes for August 8th, 2022, segments 1 and 2 were held not for release. Next up, we have the liaison reports and referrals. Mark?
Yes, I actually have something I'd like to read. I got an email regarding the way some of our committees have worked together with the town, and I thought this one was a great example of how things should run. And this is coming from Barry Jefferson, who's the co-chair of the Roberts Field Committee. Hi, Paul. Sometimes we get used to complaining and contention that we forget to notice when things are going well. As co-chair of the Roberts Field Advisory Committee, I can tell you that the committee's relationship with the town of Chelmsford has had some significant challenges over the years. What I can also tell you is that since Christine Clancy has taken over leadership of the DPW, things have improved dramatically. No, we don't always get everything we want, and that's appropriate. However, Christine, Steve Callahan, and Joe Erickson have been going above and beyond to help us in supporting the park. This is especially significant considering the many other demands on them. To me, the most notable improvement has been the more open communication. Christine has been timely, thoughtful, and transparent in our correspondence with us, even when we may not like what she has to say. Christine, Steve, and Joe have restored the partnership that we have been missing. Kudos to you, Paul, for finding Christine. I just think it's just a great note, and they're not getting everything they want. I have firsthand information, I work with the board as liaison, and I've been involved in some of this, and there's been a lot of good back and forth, and I think it's an excellent example of how committees and boards can work with our internal departments here and continue good, healthy communication, pulling and pushing to get the best outcome for the town. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. George, do you have anything?
All set. Thank you.
Pat?
Yeah, just have a couple. First of all, it was last month, I went to the 4-H opening ceremonies. Again, it was very impressive to see all the kids there with their animals and their produce, and it was a good fair. I went back the second day and saw some of the performances of the animals, and definitely something you should try to get to, next year. Second, I went to the Chase Bank ribbon cutting. The Chase Bank is up in Drum Hill, where Applebee's used to be. They're committed to working with the community, so we welcome them to Chelmsford. Next, I went to an Eagle Scout Court of Honor last week for Alec Patel, a very impressive young man, so congratulations to Alec. And over the weekend, there were a couple 9/11 remembrance ceremonies, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. There was a good turnout for both, and it was something that we need to do. We need to not forget the 9/11 attacks that happened over 21 years ago now.
I don't have any liaison reports, but I did have one question from somebody. I don't know who this goes to monitor it, but there's what appears to be a large oil spill walking down the backside of the Walmart parking lot. It's on the pavement, and it's almost to the road. And just wondering, who polices that or looks at that or tells them to repair? It looks like it's coming out of the building.
We'll get somebody over there to take a look at it.
That's it.
Thanks. I have a few. The school committee would like to report a smooth start to the school year. They also had a ribbon cutting on Thursday for the new center school playground, and they have a foreign exchange program underway. They currently have 11 Spanish students and 2 teachers visiting from Spain from September 8th to 20th, and then they plan on hosting French exchange students in October. Also, the tennis court committee held their last meeting, and they are working on their final recommendations to report out in the next couple of weeks. The Conservation Commission is getting close to opening the Warren Poll site to the public, and they're hoping that will happen within a few weeks. As Paul mentioned, the Finance Committee is beginning their review of the town meeting warrant articles this Thursday at 6:30 PM. They will have the opportunity for public comment at the beginning and the end of the meeting, and the agenda should be posted tomorrow. The Planning Board this Wednesday, I believe they're going to continue the 255 Princeton Street multifamily development public hearing, the 279 Billrica Road warehouse facility public hearing, the Dalton Road garage public hearing, and the River Neck Road development public hearing. And also, just to reiterate, there will be a joint Planning Board, Select Board, Finance Committee on September 19th, 1 week from today. We will be discussing the Massachusetts state legislation regarding zoning requirements in designated MBTA communities and adjacent communities. And Paul and Evan have the executive director of NIMCOG coming in for that discussion. And we also expect to have a working discussion on the status of the sewer and the proposed working draft of the new policy. We should probably send that to the Finance Committee, too.
Yep.
The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee has a very rich agenda for its next meeting on September 21st, so they would welcome any community participation and volunteers. And from the age-friendly community, there was a recent demonstration at Friendship Park and Roberts Fields on the equipment that's there for all ages and the walking path, and they just wanted to share their excitement with that with the community. And also, they have hosted a Buried in Treasure information class for people who are challenged with things like clutter and collecting things. And there are a few spots left in the upcoming classes for those who are interested. You can call the Senior Center to register for this weekly workshop support group, and the number is 978-251-0533.
If I could just add one thing before we leave the session. The other thing I want to note is, since our last meeting, we had the primary election for the statewide, and I just want to extend appreciation and my thoughts in terms of and I think what I've heard from the community about how well that went in terms of the town clerk, Patricia Duras, the board of registrars, all the election workers. The feedback I got is that it was a very smooth election operation. As you know, we had redistricting and re-precincting and mail-in voting and everything else, and I just want to acknowledge that that was a good election. And I think obviously the bigger challenge is coming up in November, but I just wanted, to just make note of that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So for Chelmsford Salem Media and the public, we expect now to adjourn to executive session, to return to open session. We will be leaving this room, and we will come back to this room when we reconvene for open session. Okay.
So I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to the collective bargaining Department of Labor Relations decision regarding New England Police Benevolent Association Local 20, and we will return to open session.
I'll second that.
Okay, Mark?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
1 second.
We're going to do this in room
Wait,
200, so
wait,
we have a
wait.
break.
And just for the recording secretary, the time is 8:27. Are we on? It is 9:22, and I will call the open session of the Select Board meeting back to order.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the warrant for the special town meeting for the fall 2022 to be held October 3rd.
Second.
Yeah, sign the
Right.
warrant.
Sign the
Sign the
warrant.
warrant for a special town meeting held on October 3rd.
All right, I'll
As
make a motion
presented.
that we sign the warrant for a special town meeting for October 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
All right,
Aye, 5-0. It's 9:23. I'll take another motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Does somebody want to second that?
I'll second it, but I thought that was the only motion you had to make?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sal's second.
That's okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. We're adjourned.